if our mics can be... here we go. Okay. We are live. Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Morning, audience. It's beautiful to be sitting here in the Black Archives Sweden pop-up and community gathering at Kulturhuset in Foyer 3. It'll be here all day, so if you're listening at home, pop in and take part in the program. My name is Marcia Harvey Isaksson, and I'm the founder of South Nord, and together with Kulturhuset, we are organizing this art fest to celebrate Black and Afro-Nordic artists and creatives. And this morning, I have the pleasure of speaking to three amazing people who have started archive initiatives all over the Nordics. So I will start by introducing you one by one. Jonelle Twum is the founder and artistic director of Black Archives Sweden, which is an organization where archives meet contemporary art. Twum is also an artist and a filmmaker. Her award-winning short film and Mama's Crop from 2021 received attention both internationally and in Sweden and was nominated for several awards. It was recently screened at Malmö Konsthall as part of the exhibition I staden växer ett fält. Twum recently premiered the short film I Think of Silences When I Think of You at the Gothenburg Film Festival in 2023. Wisam Elfadl is a curator for the Being Black Afro-Finns Experience exhibition and also the founder of Black Archives Helsinki and a member of the WASLA collective. And WASLA is committed to anti-racist intersectional feminism and a safer space challenging prevailing notions of Islam through the decolonial and queer lens. Her work with Black Archives Helsinki aims to build a central archive for Afro-Finnish identity, fostering education and empowerment within the community. And last but not least, Piniel Demisse is based in Oslo and is the co-founder of activist library Assata. She's a Pan-Africanist community builder and organizer who, through Assata, works on political consciousness and knowledge dissemination. Her work is Afrocentric and aims to promote critical thinking for our collective liberation. In this pop-up library that's in the space, so come by and take the chance today to see it, she has brought essential reads that we need for a more truthful analysis of the world and the structures we live under. The collection also includes literature that allows us to envision a new world beyond the current societal order. So I'd love to extend a very warm welcome to you all. I was thinking that we could start off by each of you telling us about the initiatives that you have founded and co-founded and the work that you do through those initiatives. We could just start with you, Jonelle.
Thank you, Marcia, and thank you for the invitation. So Black Archives Sweden, as you mentioned, is contemporary archive that is centered on Afro-Swedish experiences and narratives. And we work at the intersection of archive, research, and contemporary art. Where we gather material and activate it using artistic mediums. So that is our primary mode of working, and our ambition is to build a community archive where there's space for dialogue, learning, unlearning, and rest, just being able to exist with each other, for each other. Yeah, so that's a bit briefly about Black Archives Sweden.
We can dig a little bit more into that. Would you like to continue, Wisam?
Good morning. Well, our initiative, first of all, the exhibition was in Helsinki City Museum. I was working there for a couple of years doing research regarding Afro-Finnishness in cultural spaces or national, how they consider them. And there was no discussion about how the margins feel this national identity. and I was like, I'm interested on how like racialized and like Afro-Finns like move and use the space. And by doing that, I had to look on the archive, what they have, the whole city archive, and there were none. So from there, probably was the starting point to even think about what is archive from Afro-Finnish perspective, and how is it like even accessible, and how people think about museum or the relationship with the museum. So by starting small initiative like doing tours in the city, establishing memories and like building on those memories with family members or with friends, we collected different kind of pictures from like the time like somebody's parents were there, and like then building the same memory or some of the memory like in the same spot with yourself, with your friends. So you had layered this kind of understanding of the place and belonging in that sense. So yeah, and the exhibition is mainly from a youth perspective, but from the youth perspective in that sense that their parents could as well attend and rethink the youth or the memory of when they were youth, young people, I mean. So it was closed like 1 month ago, and now we are wrapping on the feedback. And I think this is this time when I'm there is like different layer of archiving. So you have the actual work and the memory part, and then you have an exhibition, and people like work on spaces certain way, and they come and visit and use the certain circles and neighborhoods in town differently. And now when we're having the aftermath after the exhibition, it comes this kind of a third layer on the map, and it's really interesting time. And thank you for the invite, Tutti. It's
Thank
nice
you
to
for
be here.
coming.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, Assata is an activist library in Oslo. It's actually in Kunsthal Oslo right now. Sorry. And we are a library that curates like revolutionary literature from people of the global majority, so we say. And our collection is very like anti-colonial, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, very anti-isms, and kind of like centers around our own liberation. We want to move away from centering whiteness or white people. So it's very like, and we like you can also see how like the conversations in the room elevate also, you know, when it's just us and our experiences. So yeah, we are. So it's a library. It's an actual library where you can like come and borrow books, and we have a lot of activities to kind of build the political consciousness of our people, so like study groups and other also just community gatherings. And people get radicalized just eating. So there was someone who said, came to eat, but now I'm a communist. Yeah, so that was Assata. It has been like, it has become very big. So, and a lot of people feel like they are, you know, part of the Assata. Like, we're not just, we are 4 co-founders. But it's not like we do not center it around us, or everyone is like part of building it, or if they want to. But yeah, so it was actually started because we noticed how much like we speak of all this, you know, structural problems in the society, but it's a lot of us speak from experience, which is very important. But lack of theory and political analysis is also like, I don't know, it doesn't make the conversation go deeper. So that's why we kind of we're making that political thought more accessible for people to actually like analyze and know how the systems are working and how we can dismantle them and disrupt, the status quo that we are living under.
Thank you for those introductions to the practices. I wanted to find out a little bit more because both Jonelle and Wisam, you talked about archive and memory and different things. When people normally think about archive, maybe they think of like papers and things like that are in a cupboard somewhere and categorized. But the way you're speaking of it, it's like it's a collective memory, it's an individual memory. There are like so many layers. I just wanted to find out, like, practically, because you have an archive station here today where people can add to the archive, like practically what is in the archive, what artifacts or what stories and how are they archived and how are they made accessible to someone who wants to, say, research or find out more. And also for you, Piniel, I was wondering about how you collect the literature, who does the curating, is it the community who donates? Or so if you could dig a little bit more into the actual, what is in the actual physical, digital or mental archives.
Oh, you're looking at me, okay. Well, in these like national institutions, there is no such a thing as the Black Archive at all. The Black Archive in Finland, how I see it, where it is located, it's in the gender studies, it's at the universities, it's in the missionary archive, it's in the art history, it's in the like sport history. It's like really penetrated all the fields. But we don't have a record, like where is it certain picture. If I'm interested on studying, for example, let's say basketball history, I could find it on the sport museum. I can find it on the newspaper, and then I find it on the city, for example, certain city museums. But there is no such a record on which like contains all the Black Archive, like throughout the, for example, I don't know how is it here, but there is no one center archive in Finland. Everybody has their own, and they're really clinging on their own materials. And then you have to be a researcher, you have to be established, you have to be seriously taken to go, or they can open the archive. These are the like, how they say, what they consider precious. But like from my perspective, the Black Archive is also in the memory part, but it's also at third sector's archive is as well really interesting, like the Black Archive over there, and at home, at albums, videos, and especially those materials what people send from back home to those who are in the diaspora. And these kind of negotiation between C cassettes when the phone calls were super like expensive. So these kind of small materials what people have kept at home. And I'm interested on that part where the institution hasn't been, they don't even know about this part. Like everyday life, like family relations, growing and transferring like knowledge and heritage between the continent and between family members. This is like the interesting part for me, where the actual Black Archive is, because the whole identity is like around motherhood and parenting and how the kids are grown on white societies. And for example, I have C cassette from my grandmother to my mom, where she's like super worried, like, are the kids becoming Christian now when they live in a Christian country, and how you maintain religion, for example, and traditions. And she have like really specific way of telling, like, remember this, and when you cook, put this, and do you have it there, or should I send it to you? And when she send it, it's like 6 months when it arrives, and all these kind of nuances. But yeah, but we're really in the beginning of these things. I think like talking with young adults has been really interesting. Our the Black Archive Helsinki is like us who were building the exhibition, and we're like 30 from different age. The older one is like 80, and the younger one is like 2 or 3 who was participating on the workshop. So and why Helsinki is like most of Afro-Finns or the active people and members lives in Helsinki, and it's I hope it's a model which can be just copied all around, and people can establish their own archives, and then think by themselves like whether they want to negotiate with on building association around it, or work with or ask for help from the city or something like that. But
Jonelle, would you like to expand on the work you're doing in the specific space, but also that you've been doing all these years and collecting the Black history archive stories?
Yeah, I want to maybe follow up on what Wisam was talking a bit about. I'll get back to you on the different sides of the Black Archive as a way of also not centering like Black Swedish narratives around our archive, that it exists everywhere and is pervasive, is under our beds, is in our phones, is in our bodies. The archive is not the physical spaces that you were referring to. It is the memories that we hold. It is the things that are non-archivable because we cannot bring them up for it to be categorized in the way that we've archive as a normative way has processed material in our histories, which has often come with violent effects. So yeah, I really appreciate you mentioning those different sides and spaces of archive. And the same way, like this weekend is also an archival moment. This is an archival moment, and the talk is an archival material, even though it will not be so as tangible as a photo, as a poster. So these we're also very much into thinking about the things that cannot be archived and maybe should not be archived. Not everything needs to be archived. Right. The transient elements within the archives are also important to keep alive. The memories, the stories that we have, memories of going to the club and dancing together, the sweat, we will never be able to archive that. Right. But that still might hold an incredible value to us as humans. So those are also the things that we think about, like in this space, the pictures that we'll get or the artifacts are equally as important as what we've created together, what our energies have given together, being in this space, the community that we are building. So those are the things that will not be seen in our archive, but is incredibly, incredibly important. Maybe even much so, but not to put them in hierarchy, but equally important as the ones that we will be able to see later. So what we've been gathering or trying to collect so far has been centered around a theme called the Family Archive. And working around theme has been quite a conscious choice for us because we don't have resources, and archives are incredibly resource heavy. So we've decided to work with a team where we ask the Afro-Swedish Black population to give us materials that are, and copies of materials, not the originals, that are connected or relevant to their family archive. And it could be a recipe. It could be a children's story that your parent told you as a kid. It could be your old passport. It could be anything, news article clipping. Yesterday we had people come with newspaper clippings. One person came with a purse that belonged to their mother. That was incredibly important. So it can be all these different elements that consist of a family archive. But most of the things that people will bring are photographs, because the photo album has been incredibly essential part of and is an incredibly essential part of people's family archives, and I think important in Black representation. It is one of the important sites or earliest sites where we can create our own representation,
Right.
not in relation to a certain standard or expected normative standards of Blackness.
Right.
Even when performance are there, pictures that we send back home in front of a very beautiful building as to communicate something about life, the life in the Western world. That is still us curating our representation in important ways. So those are some of the materials that we have, but also the fun parts.
Yeah, I love how both of you are talking about these intangible things that can't be archived, because it makes me think of, I'm born and raised in Zimbabwe, and it makes me think of how histories and knowledge were transferred. It was oral, and you know, the elders held a lot of knowledge, and when an elder died, you know, if they hadn't had a chance to speak to the community, they died with a lot of knowledge, which I think is a risk when we're living in Western society and we're disconnected, because you know, elders end up in elderly home care and children are in a daycare, and the two never meet. And so I think there's something beautiful about trying to reimagine what an archive can be, and how you use community gatherings and community where the conversations that are happening in the corner are also a form of archiving and sorting through information and knowledge. But I wanted to ask you, Piniel, about the library, because it's actually a physical library, and you have literature in there by Black writers and Black theorists and Black thinkers. I wanted to get into how that selection is made, and is it curated, and how do you get a hold of material, basically?
So like the overall idea for our collection is, you know, preserving the literature, the revolutionary literature of people of the global majority, and my role is focusing on the African and Black literatures. So we haven't we haven't started from scratch. I have just starting the library even was inspired by, for example, Radical Hood Library in the US. And Sankara Library in Uganda. You know, there are so many, and also Burkina books in Burkina Faso. So there are like a lot of this type of libraries and people who have already done a lot of work and are making it very accessible. So there are like many lists, a lot of people on like Instagram and other platforms that you can actually like find those. This knowledge, but it's also work to do that because it's not like in front of you, and how like, for example, in the beginning when we started buying our books, we noticed how like, you know, 70% of our books weren't in the public library, and we didn't even have that many books, and it says a lot on who is sitting on the power to actually, or whose knowledge is perceived as important, and whose histories are, you know, globally accepted as the universal knowledge. So even when it's not, even in, you know, Ethiopia or other countries that are not Western, you still find Western knowledge as the center of everything. So it takes, I think, we use a lot of time to just like do a lot of research to find those people, the organizations, also just lists of books that you can't find other places. There are a lot of like small independent bookshops. We have, for example, a collaboration with, I forgot the name. There was a bookshop in the US where they sold like very special type of books that we ordered from them, and We also had a collaboration with Dalit library bookshop in India, a very small one where we bought books from them, or we have like a collaboration there. So you have to do a true like research to find those people, of course.
Yeah.
If I answered your question.
Yeah. That was the question, and I'm just thinking. I'd like to understand how, because there maybe say new writers and new thinkers who want to get their thoughts out there. Do you have any tips about where to go? Because you've really checked the market out a lot and tried to understand how things get into public spaces. For example, in Sweden, you can, if you are the author of a book or the editor, you can send it into all the 7 major libraries and have it registered, and then it will become like part of the National Archive in a way. And I don't know if everybody knows that, or feels like there are gaps in the archive because things haven't been prioritized. How to give people tips and tools on if they're creating archive today, a little bit like what we were talking about yesterday. That the works and the creations that we're making today are also part of a future archive. That was a very unclear question, but do you have any tips for writers and thinkers today on how to think about archive for the future?
Oh, that's a big question.
Big question for Sunday morning. You could say pass as well.
Contemporary writers. I don't know. I think for me, it's not about like fitting into the system that exists right now, that has already excluded us. Like, I don't want to be part of the table. I want to break it or build my own, kind of. So Assata has actually now started as a publisher also. So we are doing that. But of course, like, it's important that your work is accessible for as many as possible. So I think, like, for example, in Oslo, you can't just send your work to the library and then they will maybe take it in. It's not really... There are just, a lot of white people who sit in that part of the administration, so they don't even think about those, things. But if you just send an email, you can maybe get in. I don't know. Okay. I think they, Yeah, I don't know if I ask you.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting when you say that Assata's taking on a role as a publisher, that Black Archives Helsinki and Black Archives Sweden are taking on the role that we, and South Nord is also taking that role. We need to be able to tell our own stories and to continue to tell our own stories in a long-term way. I wanted to, if we could for a moment imagine together a future of archive or archiving before I open up to the audience. How do you see your individual projects or global projects? What possibilities do they have to find a new way of archiving and of maintaining and continuing archives?
Before answering that, and before I lose my thought, what you said, I think how I was thinking, like, we're like all talking about like how invested we are at the same point, but at the same time we don't have an established funding on anything. There's no money. It's totally voluntary, and that's already a huge investment. Everybody's like eager and like hungry to do that work. But at the same time, everybody has to pay their bills and feed their family and send back home some money. And that's really hard when negotiating about time. And for example, you ask me like if some people could come here with me, and they're like, I'm super busy. I need to get something done before the Christmas so that I can fly back home. So all these kind of negotiation with what is really around money, right? But nobody's actually talking about it. And like it's what I hear from you is like, okay, there are a lot of great books and materials, and I'm just like, who's buying? Like, with what money you're getting that, and how you invest on that, and how you, for example, encourage writers to do that, since it's not the easy path to go, since you are not even sure like how many copies you're gonna be somebody or the publisher is gonna publish, and who's gonna buy it. So, but yeah, that's.
Yeah, funding.
But I did not answer your question, but I just wanted to.
Yeah. No, I think funding is something that, talking about challenges, I didn't ask about challenges.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of look forwards, but we should talk about the challenges, because we are all self-initiated, self-run, a lot of blood, sweat and tears that maybe doesn't get covered by funding, and it makes it hard to be sustainable as well. And when we're talking about archive and trying to build up an archive, it needs to be sustainable so that there's something for coming generations to turn to. Or it could be, as we've been like touching upon, that there's some kind of archive that isn't in a form as we know it, but is in a form as we knew it before, where things are transferred in different ways. So I don't know if you have any thoughts or ideas, or specifically about your own initiatives, how you envision the future for them.
Oh, it's also very tied to what you were. It becomes difficult. Like it could be like a speculative future thinking, but it's also on a practical level. It is quite difficult having resources as a challenge. We are incredibly understaffed this weekend. Everyone is working voluntarily, and there's just friends that we've asked to come and help out. That is not sustainable at all. We have no budget, like half of this year.
Yes.
And that is talking about having a sustainable archive. You need funding. You need funding that is sustainable and not project money. Right. And at least in Sweden, the art world is in this landscape of project money, which means on one sense it's really good. You can get project money, you do your stuff. On the other end, it means you get into this ecology of creating for the sake of creating to get money, which is very exhausting. And archive, for me, is a very long and reflective process. It requires moments of rest, moments of thinking of how to process, moments, because it's a work of responsibility. You're creating relationships with the community. I archive this elderly gentleman of 80, he's 82, wanted me to document his life history. We are up to 20 hours, and I'll go to his home, and it takes, because once you go, he remembers so many things, and he brings up new things, and I want to honor that. But being on my own, having to go, doing, and having to think about everything else, that is unsustainable.
Yeah.
And that is the reality. So it makes it very difficult. I used to have this 5-year plan that I will love that in 5 years I'm not part of Black Archives Sweden. That will be amazing, because that means that we have built structures where other people can work with it, rather than it being centered on very few people. And what you mentioned, people need jobs. People need, I can sacrifice and live precarious, because that is fine to some extent, but people, I cannot ask that of other people to do that, even though it is a community project. So there's this negotiation of the need of wanting to help out, but also the reality, material reality of living becomes very, very challenging to combine that. So when it comes to future, I wish that we do have the resources in order to have structures, infrastructures, where it is not centered around the people that are there now, that we can hand it over. There is a plan, a short-term plan of what happens if someone is no longer there, or some people are no longer there, that the archive can still live on in whatever iteration
That
Do
is.
you, do you think that, I mean, obviously grassroots things start where they are, you know, and it's someone who's passionate who starts these things. Do you think there is maybe a need to think regionally and like bring all our archives together and create a larger archive and look at it at a bigger, or would that disturb the archive in a way, make it less personal or make it less accessible for
I
the
think
grassroots?
like that would be a dream to have that kind of a Nordic Afro history kind of archive. I really, as you said, like the archive itself it's already super shattered everywhere, and I don't mind that. It's just like how people recognize it when it comes to their whatever they find an article or whatever, when they see a newspaper and they immediately can think that, okay, nobody have seen this and I'm taking a picture. How to recognize history and to just think through the lens of this might be not happening again of a situation, and taking your phone only just to record that so it doesn't slip away, whether it's a discussion with somebody or an event or whether it's a picture you found from your mom's locker or whatever. But my worry is mainly like people don't recognize that communal, like sitting together and talking and sharing is already in us. So this is, we are not like building a new, at least I don't want to think that this is something new for us as Black people, that we carry heritage and we carry traditions and talking. But now when we are in a Western society, we have these labels and names and archive and such a thing, and which is already might be a bit confusing. So what I wish is like somehow talk in the set, at least from talk in a way that people realize that they are already existing archive. They are themselves are already existing archive. Their homes and their parents' homes are already existing archive, and someday they probably have grandkids or something, and somebody might ask about something. So everything doing now is something somebody could point out after 50 years. So how to record that? But it would be interesting. At least Finland is like in middle of Russia and Sweden, and we have the Black Archive is on both countries. And I don't know how to, for example, my dream is like to learn a bit of Russian, so there is, and to contact somebody there, since they have some Black Archive over there, and as well the history line, like Finland is only 100 years in like from the independency, so there is a lot of movement and people have traveled, and I don't know whether, I don't care like whether it's like Swedish archive, but or is it Finnish archive, but there were like Black people in this region of the world, which is like something really interesting, since the white people or the institution themselves, they just don't recognize that. It doesn't matter like in which, under what country it's labeled, but the whole realization, at least after the exhibition in Finland, like people like, oh, so they were mainly interested about, so the Finn went to Africa the first time in 1400, and they were like, wow, I thought they went only for the missionary work. And I was just like, no. So if they went there like 1500, it means that there was somebody here as well, since they don't think about it like other way or like vice versa. So, yeah.
Piniel, do you have any thoughts on the future for Assata and the work you're doing and this new venture with the publishing?
Yeah. We are very ambitious people, so
Wonderful.
we have many plans, but we are trying to figure out how to like make it sustainable funding-wise. We don't want to be funded by the state because there are so many conditions and terms you have to, follow. So, but we our dream is that like Assata can become like community funded and driven, like everyone owns Assata kind of thing. But Kunsthal Oslo, they have been very helpful, like providing the space for free, and also helped us with buying books and other just material needs. So it has been a very good collaboration there without any like terms or conditions. And we need like that type of help or funding. I think we have like seeked out funding, but it's not the way we work and the way we are perceived. Also, I don't think we can get funding. So yeah. But we will figure out a way, I think. And right now, like we all have like our full-time jobs also, and Assata is like also a full-time job. So it's when we get to focus on Assata only, I think it can only go up from there.
Yeah. But the basis of the dream is that the community comes in and helps.
That would be nice. Yeah, we have been like sitting on. Looking at some local spaces and how much it would cost if so many of our community like joined us, and would make it more like, we call it spleiselag in Norwegian. Yeah.
Do you have that, because we were thinking, do you know that kind of a banking method, at least in Sudan, and we were talking in our team, when every month somebody gets the money?
Oh yeah.
Kind of
we've had
and
we have that also in Ethiopia.
Yeah. And we were thinking about that kind of a funding method. So, for example, we are in the project, and you, so that everybody's idea is taken in consideration and could be handed forward. That money is like, for example, you have the idea of recording that elderly man, so we invest on your time by giving you that money so you can focus on that, and next time or next month or however we decide, it goes to you, and then you focus on that, so you don't have this kind of a double job, your actual job and doing the archive. So we've been thinking about what existing, like this old school method we had back when our parents were young, and trying to imply that like here.
That's a
which
great
is not
idea.
common way of.
We have actually been talking about exactly the same
Yeah.
method.
Like establishing things which is already existing.
I was thinking of maybe opening up a little to the audience and see if anyone wants to engage, ask a question, make a comment about archive. Do we have a microphone that we could use for the audience?
Somewhere there, they're pointing. Yes.
Yeah, we're going to get a mic.
This says,
there we
but
go.
Is there questions?
We have a question in the back, Jakuba.
Thank you so very much. Yes. My name is Jakuba Sise. I'm based in Oslo. I've been documenting the African presence for the past 26 years. So thank you to all of you. Thank you for your beautiful presentations and your work. I want to make a comment and ask a question. I think I understand when you're talking about resources. I remember when I began this work sometime around 1996. I think it's very important, the work you're doing. It's incredibly important. It's not only important for the community, but also for the country, for the region. It's very important you mentioned Russia and Finland. I think on your talking about the Africans in Russia, there are two things you need to remember. You need to contact the daughter of a woman called Lily Golden. Her daughter is a very powerful TV anchor, presenter. The parents came from America. They were part of a project to building, I think, relation between America and Russia then in
Yes.
those days, I think in the 30s,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
And going back to the archives and the challenges is that I think you have to have the passion. When I started, nobody called me and say, hey, we got 100,000 as funding, we would like to give it to you. I use my own funding. You need to map the elderly in the communities. You need to speak to them. You need to remember this, what I'm about to say now. Not every elderly will like to speak to you. Do you know why? They don't know you. Why will they open the album to you? So you need to take time to talking to them. You need to explain why what you are doing is important. Some will open the doors. Some will share their photographies with you. Some will share their stories. But above all, you need to be patient. There's a lot of joy in doing this, but also sometimes there's a lot of pain. Sometimes you'll sit in the midnight hour alone and cry and say, wow, I'm doing this and nobody is recognizing me. You don't know how many times I wanted to stop this work, you know. But listen, I've met so many important men and unknown people and that share their story with me. This is what you're doing. You're not only doing it for now, you're doing it for the future. So you shouldn't I respect that you mentioned the fact that you want to do this in 5 years. I also said that 26 years ago, and I'm still doing it. But I've had very clear visions. I wanted to write texts, articles. I never thought I could write a book. I'm writing books now. Writing books for me, it's part of it. I need to produce those books. You know why? Because the books are not in the libraries. So somebody needs to create those books. On the economics and creating links between the archives, very important subject. The big question is, and that is my question, how do we do that? You know, how do we create an opportunity and a platform to creating our Nordic Black archives? And that is a difficult one, you know, because the archives don't have the same stories. Some of the archives are, you know, we have not even started yet. And this is an ongoing work. And I don't pretend I have a complete archives. There are no archives that is complete. You know, it's a very long and very difficult process. But one last thing. Cheikh Anta Diop, the great Senegalese thinker and writer, said this once. You need to create allies. Sometimes you don't have to do the calling to the missionary school. Let Ole or Magnus do that for you. You need to have strategies in getting to the archives and getting to the information. Because sometimes the people you call at the desk, they don't want to open. They're not used to, excuse my French, they're not used to your name. So who are you? Who's calling? You have to use different methods to getting to the archives. It takes time. You need to be patient. But you're going to get there. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a question in the front here. Thank you. I guess that was a comment. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Would you like to respond?
A comment to, I just remembered. In Finland at least, there are a lot of like smaller margin communities who are as well tackling the same, like where is our archive, and the Roma people are like establishing their own archive, and the Sami people have like starting to establish their own archive. So the Afro-Finns are not the only group who is working on this. So I think, I don't know how you all think, but like I think those who are already excluded from this institutional recognition, my dream is just to find time with those who are already excluded and think with them, like how did they do when tackling these things. For example, I know that the Sami people have been always and will be there. And they have their own ways how they've been passing traditions. And I don't think that we differ in that sense, since everybody knows how it feels like when you've been excluded. So there are already people, it doesn't mean like the knowledge is only with Afro-Finns or the Afro-Swedes, but like those who are already doing this similar kind of archiving because of their background. So that would be also helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
You see,
shared knowledges.
Yeah, shared
is
knowledges.
yeah.
And
We had a question here in the front.
Yes. Well, you kind of mentioned it, sort of. But I'm just curious if you all would consider cooperatives, like, or creating a cooperative model. And I know Assata's a library, so it's not about the money, and you're kind of anti-capitalist in a sense. But just in thinking about cooperative methods, like, you know, like if everyone has a piece of the pie in a way, everyone's owner, then there's a certain you know, level of responsibility people feel towards it. So maybe they'd be more active. Or if there's like hey, you need to spend this much time once a month for so many hours. I mean, I don't know how feasible that is for the work you all are doing, because I don't also know the details and the structures, but I'm just curious if that's something that you could consider, or that would be even possible for the way in which you work. And then also, this is a comment, but in terms of the, some friends of mine, I have 15 friends that I went to college with, and we started a savings plan together. So every month we put in $30 a month, and, you know, it's not a whole lot of money, and if sometimes some months people can't afford it, but it's been extremely beneficial, like for months when people are broke and somebody's like, hey, you know, I need some assistance, or if someone loses a parent and we're like, hey, here's some, it's not always a lot of money, but it's something. So I just, in terms of some cheering for the collective sort of savings funding situation, it can actually be pretty fruitful.
I think you, oh, sorry.
no, I'll just nodding.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That is definitely next on the agenda of finding a structure of building something cooperative and community-like, that people are actually invested in that. So that's something we've started getting ideas of, and I'll be speaking with both of you and hearing more about the different cooperative models, because it's not sustainable to keep on with how we've been doing. So yeah, thank you for those ideas.
Can I also ask one more quick question? I'm sorry. Have you also considered like time-based? I mean, it's hard because we live in capitalist society, so we need money. But in terms of other forms of exchange, so even thinking like seeds, you know, is there ways in which the archive can expand to like local community spaces where there are gardens, and there's other ways in which I don't know. That's another bigger, broader kind of exploration, but just thinking of other economies.
Yeah, at least the Black Archive Helsinki is like, every time we meet, we choose a Black business-owned spaces. So we have Assata like library, which is like anti-racist and feminist space. We use that quite often because it's quite big, and there is the book and resources as well. We use that kind of a thing, and during summer, there is one friend of ours whose parents is owning a garden, so we probably go there and we share knowledge on regarding around food and sustainability and those, and it depends on the topic what we are archiving. We choose the spaces where we meet, so we don't have our own space, and the idea is like we share the common understanding, like helping others and like taking money to where it belongs to, like in the community. So that's the goal.
I think for us, it's we have so many methods we want to do, and like I think we are able to do it as long as we don't have our full-time jobs. So like when we are like going for it and risking our livelihood whatever, I think we can make it happen, because we built Assata like in 3 months.
Yeah.
it is a possibility, a very big possibility in a few years.
Okay.
Yes.
We have time for just one last question, and
Hi, thank you so much for the work you do, and thank you for that talk. I have one question and maybe one ramble, which might end up in a question. So the first one, from the archives, kind of what interesting stories or things have you found out? Because I also love archives and getting lost, and part of the joy of it is discovering and getting lost and falling down the rambles of, yes. And secondly, this might be, I don't know how it's going to come out, but it's just a thought that's been going through my head in terms of the model of archiving. I'm familiar with the works of Black Archives Sweden, but not as familiar with everyone else, but in terms of like the model of archiving, this need to record, categorize, put things in place, and like collect and collect and collect. Kind of is also quite similar to this kind of capitalist system of wanting more and needing and needing. So have you thought about like, I mean, often in other cultures it's oral history and that's passed on, and also the stories become useful based upon the culture that needs it and how they shape it and form it. Do you have any ideas about how, when you're working with archives and the kind of space you want to create and the kind of accessibility that you want to create, is there a conceptual foundation around how we make an archive accessible, or how the kind of recording models we want to do? Because we do live in this society, so we are shaped by this society, which becomes like this categorizing and defining and making lines quite sharp and not blurred in order for it to be precise. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Go ahead.
who wants to tackle that?
Oh, okay.
But the funny story first, the good stories first.
Wait, let me see what end to. What was the good one, Diana?
What you found unexpected?
Oh, unexpected in the archives. Right now, I'm kind of obsessed with this oral history recordings that I've been doing with elderly people, and it's become very organic. So I started talking with this elderly African American man that have been in Malmö since the 60s. And then he leads me on to his friend, and there's become this whole story around desertees, American desertees, black desertees that didn't want to be in the Vietnam War, that came to Sweden. There was so many of them that I didn't know, and they have so much news clippings. They used to create political schools. I'm thinking about a project as we are speaking with them in their homes. They used to host members of the Black Panthers in Malmö. They run the Black Panther Solidarity Party. There's so much stories, and stories of people talking about their parents having the first Afro shop in Malmö, and it moving, the first person that had a record store where you could also get some bootleg alcohol. There's so many stories that is coming out, but it's a bit of what Jacobi was saying, that when you were I was thinking this takes time, and time is resources and money, and it's very difficult if you have the full-time job to also relate to all of that. And when someone has given me their time, I do want to be consistent with that and show up for them and show, because we are building a relationship that I care, and that care gets translated into trust and all of that. But those are some of the fun things. So we are hoping to do a longer project with these group of friends that meet at cafes every Saturday, and they're all 80 plus and lots of fun and have so much stories to share, endless stories. And what was your other question? Yeah, we actually have done a lot of research trips to different activist archives, smaller archives, to get inspiration, because we do not, that was the starting point, that we start from and work from a queer, feminist, and diasporic perspective. We do not want to reproduce closed shelves, places that you go and you need to check out. That is, and it's not only accessible to researchers and sometimes artists. That's not the kind of archive you want to reproduce with. So we have so many inspirations. There's so many archives already doing this, and also inspirations from non-formal spaces. For me, my primary inspiration is my grandma, who was the family archivist, and she was really good at dating stuff. Very specific and meticulous, and also, but it's in boxes. It's not the ways that people will see archives. So we all have these examples around us. We are traveling to Ghana soon to look at different artistic institutions that are doing things in different ways. So we are always finding inspirations in different places. These are inspirations for us. We keep very active dialogue with people around us doing the work, and there's so many ways that people are doing this work and have been doing this work that does not follow Western models. So that we are grateful for all the work that have existed before us, that we could share knowledge and collect knowledge from.
Wonderful. I think I have to let that be the final word because we're out of time, but I want to thank you all so much for taking this time to unpack, dig in the archives and dig in your practices. And I want to thank the audience for listening and the audience at home. And please, let's continue the conversation. There will be more talks today, all centered on digging. And so, yeah, stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.